Welcome to the Fathering Strong podcast, dedicated to empowering fathers to build stronger families and communities. Each week, we bring you conversations with experts, everyday dads, and community leaders who share their wisdom and experience to help you become the father your children need. Whether you're a new dad just starting out, a seasoned father facing new challenges, or someone who mentors and supports fathers in your community, you'll find practical advice, heartfelt stories, and evidence-based strategies to strengthen your fathering journey. You can find all our previous episodes, resources for fathers, and information about Urban Light Ministries programs at urbanlight.org. If you find value in our podcast, please subscribe and share with other fathers in your life who might benefit from this community. And now, here's Pastor Eli Williams with this week's episode.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another installment of the Fathering Strong podcast. Eli Williams here, and I have with me in the studio today Dan Griffin. Dan and I met last year, I think it was last year, at a conference in Los Angeles, and we were neighbors actually in the exhibit hall, and I got to know him and his partner a bit, and thought that Dan would be a great guest for us to bring on to talk about his work in fatherhood, because you've got an interesting specialty in your work with fatherhood. So we want to talk about that, Dan. First, let me say welcome for being, we appreciate you taking time out to be on the program today.
It's great to be here. It's great to see you again. I enjoyed our conversations when we met and the work that you're doing. And I'm looking forward to our conversation.
What we like to do is begin with your personal story, Dan, of your relationship with your father, good, bad, or indifferent. There's something to learn and to be inspired by in everybody's story. So tell us about little Dan growing up in the Griffin household.
Oh boy. Let me just say, there is something in the air right now about me and my dad.
Really?
Because I was doing some work yesterday, and that had me focused on my teenage years, which were really, really difficult. Then I had a good friend call me this morning, and he just started talking, and his very first question was like, your dad died of alcoholism, right? And I was like, good morning. And it proceeded about 15 minutes of like these really intense questions about my father, my relationship with my father. I was like, where is this going? Well, he was talking about his relationship with his mom and stuff that's going on with her, but he just kind of wanted to remember kind of some of my experiences. So I'll start at the end. My relationship with my father ended when he was 54 and he drank himself to death. Oh. And when I say he drank himself to death, I mean he literally drank himself to death. He hemorrhaged to death in our family home, esophageal varices. It was a brutal death. It was a brutal life in many ways. And yet, as often is the case, right, it's not black and white. He was a brilliant man, Dr. Owen Martin Griffin. He was a research scientist, renowned in his field. When he died, they dedicated a journal to him. But what I also talked to my friend about is I never really knew my father. He lived in the house, but I never really got to know him. I could probably count on one hand the number of conversations we had that were anything other than him yelling at me. And it was, and so what I talked to my friend about is I said, look, I was a really sensitive, emotional kid. And for boys, like, that's not ideal. And I don't know if my father was when he was a kid, but I think, just based on a few things that he said, I think he might have been. Mm-hmm. But what I know is that part of me, that innocent, sensitive, emotional, seemingly weak little boy I think was a real threat to my father. And what we don't talk enough about, Eli, in the work we do, is how kids trigger adults. What I mean by that is if you grew up in a home where you had a parent who was very abusive towards you and mean and all that sort of stuff, and said things to you that made you think that there was something wrong with you and who you were, aspects of you. I'll give you something to cry about. Why are you such a little baby? Stop being a little bitch. All the things that parents can say. And oftentimes what we don't acknowledge is that when the parents are saying that, they're in their own triggered, activated state of their past trauma. And so the generational trauma of parents, of fathers and sons, especially, as relates to this, can get passed down. And I didn't know it at the time. My father certainly didn't know it, but I think that's part of what was happening is that he saw this little boy, and I would say now this precious little boy, but he saw this little boy and his innocence and his vulnerability and his weakness, and he had that kind of crushed in him. He had that kind of really taken out of him by his father, by his older brother, by the other kids in the neighborhood. He grew up in working class New Jersey. So I'm making all this up, right? Because I don't know this for a fact, but I think this is what happened. I'm a pretty intuitive dude. And I think that's part of what happened. And so my father would get triggered by my emotionality, by my crying, by my sensitivity. And he would see it in me, and he hated it in himself, and he needed to crush it in me.
Okay, so let me ask
story.
You how
Yeah.
did how did he crush it in you? Talk more about that.
Well, there was different ways. I mean, it was emotional, verbal, and physical. I mean, he emotionally would make fun of me. He would verbally say things, call me names, put me down, say things that were threatening, say things that were demeaning. Um, Oftentimes now, looking back, he was probably drunk.
Mm.
And I didn't also know that, right? And then it would get physical at times too, because sometimes I would argue back and I'd get a hand across the face, or I'd try to run away. And I have vivid memories of, trying to run away from him and him pulling me down the stairs so I couldn't get away from him, and then proceeding to hit me, or waking me up in the middle of the night, telling me my room was a mess, and then starting to hit me. And as I'm kind of hiding under the bed, continuing to hit me, or grabbing the trash can and hitting me with the trash can. Um, those were some of the ways that he did it. And, for your listeners, I mean, I know you have some listeners who can identify with this, and
Yes.
they might be being triggered by what I'm
Yes.
saying.
Yes.
I've done a lot of work to be able to talk about this, and I'm still getting triggered. I got triggered when my friend was talking to me this morning, and I'm just kind of like, oh, wow, okay, there's more work to do. There's more healing to just heal the pain, of that little boy who was treated so poorly, and that teenager, who was treated so poorly. It got to the point, and I think this is one of the things that I regret the most, is that it got to the point where my innocence, or my emotionality, my vulnerability, it couldn't stand on its own. I couldn't maintain it. And so it turned to anger and rage. And frankly, when you live in that kind of environment, anger and rage is what protects you. Vulnerability is not going to protect you. Weakness is not going to protect you. Everybody has their trauma response. It could be fight, it could be flee, it could be freeze, it could be fawn, it could be, any number of things. But I ended up choosing fight. But when I did that, something in me was lost, and something that I never wanted was born. And that was an angry man. And I was telling my friend, I said, so when we were in teenage years, I still didn't like violence. I still was very emotional. I wrote poetry, I wrote songs, I listened to like emotional music. And I was also getting very angry. I got into a fight with my dad one night, almost killed him. I was choking him to death, and my mom screamed, and I kind of came to,
Yeah.
from her screams, and I threw him on the ground and I kicked him. And I think I went out drinking,
Mm.
16 years old. One time my dad was drunk. I was going to school. We got into an argument. He punched me in the face. It didn't really hurt that much, but it hurt emotionally that my father hit me in the face.
Yeah.
And what I remember the most, Eli, is it didn't leave a mark, but I wanted everybody to know my father hit me in the face. So I took eyeliner and I gave myself a black eye.
Oh my.
So I
Yeah.
could go to school, and when people said, "What happened?" I could say, "My father hit me." So,
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, that's the war zone of an alcoholic home, and it's very inconsistent. It's very erratic. I mean, I don't want to paint. For the longest time, I've painted the wrong picture of my father because I've only told one part of the story. I mean, that's one part of the story. Occasionally we would throw the football. Occasionally, he was my soccer coach. Um, you, you know, there was a time when he was sober and I was going to drop out of college. And when I say like, I remember like 5 conversations that he and I had, that's one of them where he convinced me not to drop out of college. And he was really sincere, and he was really like, because I was lost, man. I was lost in my own alcoholism, right? Another generational impact.
Yeah.
And just yesterday was my 31st sobriety anniversary, So very grateful for that. My father saw me sober. The last time I saw my father, he was sober. We went to a 12-step meeting together. I brought him back to my little apartment. I played a song for him I had written, and and I wanted to share it with him. It was a song about recovery. And I was very nervous to share it with him because one of my memories from when he was drunk, when I first started playing guitar, was he made fun of me in front of some other people when we were at the beach and said, I've got more talent in my pinky than you'll ever have. And it crushed me when I was just trying to play a little bit of guitar for them. And it's heartbreaking living in an alcoholic home because the monsters come out when people are drunk, and they vomit them on anybody within their space. And I've done a lot of work around my relationship with my father. I've written him a lot of letters since he
Good.
died. I've talked to him a lot.
Good.
There's a high degree of peace that I feel, a high degree of empathy that I feel for him as I've watched myself become a father, and as I have had to navigate my own challenges of being a father, and being emotional or being angry or being this or being that, and just kind of like, if I know my heart and I know I behave in ways that I don't want to be, and that's not really reflective of who I truly want to be, then maybe that was my father as well. And I had a few instances in the 22 years that I knew him that tell me I never really met him.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All you ever saw was that messed up
Not
alcoholic
all I
side
ever
of
saw.
him.
Like I said, I don't want to write the incomplete story or the inaccurate story. I mean,
Yeah.
he was funny, at times, and he could be loving. And like, some of the best memories I have, okay, some of the best memories I have, even if sometimes it happened. So I grew up in Maryland, and people had basements, and I'm in Los Angeles now, and nobody has basements. But I loved having a basement. And my dad would get into a fight with my mom, or he'd leave dinner. And looking back, he probably had some mental health stuff, but he'd go in the basement and he would put on records and he would lay down. And I think I felt safe, to go down and be with him. And I would just listen to music with him. And that probably helped create some of my love, of music and how music has kind of blossomed in my life. But I have vivid memories of wrestling with him in the basement, or just what I probably can literally, an olfactory memory that I have is laying my head on his stomach, feeling his stomach moving up and down, listening to the Eagles in the background, but smelling the alcohol coming out of his breath as we're lying there. And not knowing really what I'm smelling, and not knowing that he's probably drunk, because I mean, like a lot of people, he'd come home from work and it was immediately to get a drink.
Yeah. So Dan, the work that you do, how much of that was driven by your experience growing up?
All of it. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
I
all,
would
it's
think.
all, it all
Yeah,
informs it. I mean, we teach what we need to heal. We
yeah,
teach what, I mean,
yeah.
it's like, it's all mixed in. And, one of my sayings that I love is sometimes being a father is giving what you never got.
Yes.
And in doing this work, I'm also teaching and learning what I never learned, and
Mm.
and that's part of the healing. And then I see my father differently. When I see my father in the other men, or I see or I just, there's no question. Well, I said this one day, and it kind of just came out of my mouth, but the profundity of it, I kind of got a little later. I said, I've probably spent the last 30 years of my work trying to save my father.
That's profound. Let's talk some about your work. All
Yeah.
right. And you take that up wherever you want to take it. How did you get started with it, and what, well, you've talked about what drives you, but any way you want to elaborate on that, your motivation and all for the work that you do.
I mean, it's a combination of factors. I always felt insecure as a man. I always felt like I was doing masculinity wrong. And not only wrong, but poorly, less than. There was a negative judgment about it. Um, in addition to the fun that I had living with an alcoholic father, I also was one of the first generation of young men treated with growth hormone to grow. And so I was almost 16 when my pediatrician put me on a regimen of human growth hormone to kickstart puberty, because I was not hitting puberty, had not hit puberty. And that was its own kind of traumatic experience. But I'm a pretty intelligent guy. And as I was like a really small guy and felt really weak, and I was much smaller than all the other guys in my high school, and I got picked on, and I got hazed by the seniors in high school, and so I was put in a trash can and stuffed in a locker. The kind of stuff that the guys were just teasing in some ways, but it was devastating for me. I felt so powerless. Here I am powerless at home, and now I'm powerless here. And I share this because, so I was like paying attention to men and how men were behaving. And I I had this voice that said, well, you're not a man, right? You haven't hit puberty. You don't really kind of have what it takes to be a man, quote unquote. Like literally in my mind is what I would kind of just keep saying myself. And so I started paying attention to masculinity and men and how they're behaving and what they're doing and kind of deconstructing it. Then I ended up in college and I had all this stuff in my head. I hadn't shared it with anybody. And I ended up in a sociology of women course by a friend who had encouraged me to take that course. And I was like, why would I take a sociology of women course? I mean, like, what, why? And she looked at me and she was like, it'll be all women. And I said, well, that's not a bad thing. But it changed my life, Eli. It changed my life. It opened my eyes to gender. It opened my eyes to patriarchy, to these words that we're not allowed to use anymore because a certain individual and the federal government has decided those words are not acceptable. But I really don't care because it's real. And I learned about gender. I learned about patriarchy. I learned about sexism. I learned about the objectification of women from women. I heard them tell their stories of rape and sexual assault and sexual abuse and how it felt to be treated by men. And I was like, oh, man, that is heavy. And then I asked my professor, I said, well, is anybody looking at this stuff for men? And she said, I don't know. Why don't you look? And I think she knew, but she wanted me to research it, and it became my senior thesis. And I looked at it, and then at the same time, I was getting sober. And so this confluence of events was really fascinating. And there's so much I could tell you about like the work and how it came to me, right? Like I think for some people, they're lucky enough to truly be able to say the work came to them. Mm-hmm. They didn't have to force it or seek it out. It came to them. And that's exactly what happened to me is it came to me. And then I started exploring in my recovery. I started hearing men communicate in the 12-step culture. And I was like, whoa, the guys are talking about feelings and they're hugging other guys. This is 30 years ago. Hugging other guys and they're talking about feelings and they're, asking for help. I mean, like there's this whole different kind of masculinity that's happening. Do other people see this? And in many ways, they didn't. They didn't see it in the context of masculinity. And I don't know. I mean, I just got the idea that if we really look at things through a lens, then we can reach men differently. We can connect with men differently. And then I started doing that work. I wrote a book called A Man's Way Through the 12 Steps. It's been quite successful for Hazelden. Then I wrote another book called A Man's Way Through Relationships, and I released a curriculum called Helping Men Recover. And then I got introduced to the concept of trauma. And then I started really developing and thinking about, well, but what's a man's experience of trauma? What does it mean for a man to talk about trauma? What does it mean for a man to acknowledge that he has trauma? What does it mean for a man to go into that space, that deep, painful, wounded, vulnerable space and look and heal what's there and have the faith and the safety and the trust to do it? And then I just started looking at the overall paradigm of services that we provide men. And it was like, it was not great. It was inadequate as far as I was concerned. And I felt like we could do a whole lot better. And so I started writing about it and I started teaching it and I started working with programs. And They seem to agree with me. And then the next thing you know, Eli, I'm a father. And guess what? If you're a dad, you're a man. You know, and so it just started looking at, like, not only, again, because it's always been personal for me. It's
Yeah.
always been personal. I got into recovery and I'm like, how the hell do I navigate masculinity in the space of this whole recovery process? And how do I come to some degree of peace with what they're asking me to be and how hard I've worked to stay away from that stuff? You know, you tell me to get in touch with my feelings and ask for help and hug other guys and let go of sex as the only thing for intimacy, and that's all I've known. So how am I supposed to really do that? You know, and the thing is that a lot of guys, they don't do that, and then they relapse, or they don't do that, and then they're miserable in other ways. And then I started, but that was me. That was my own personal journey. And I was talking to other men and interviewing men and looking at that. And so then when I became a father, I was talking to other fathers and I was watching what was happening with me as a father. And I was like, and I was working at the Minnesota Supreme Court at the time. And nobody was talking about fathers. And I was like, are you kidding me? And if they were talking about fathers, it was pretty disparagingly or like as an add-on.
Yeah.
And it just didn't make sense to me. And so I, started challenging some of those assumptions and pushing people who were saying they were, working for kids' benefits. I'm like, you say that you are a champion of kids and the word father doesn't even come out of your mouth?
My. Yep.
I mean, I'm like, I don't think that qualifies. And if you think this mother-focused paradigm is healthy for anybody, including moms, you're mistaken, So I can be provocative and I can be, a little intense. That's part of my personality. And I'm also willing to say the stuff that a lot of people aren't willing to say. And I'm okay with that. I'll take the hit if I need to. And so I started developing stuff for fathers, and we have a curriculum called Amazing Dads, and it's the first trauma-informed curriculum for dads because it's like we have a saying now, if you're working with men, you're working with dads. What are you doing with dads? And this whole idea that I'm a man, I'm carrying around trauma, and I'm trying to be a father. And being a father and a really healthy, good father reflects a lot of what I've been told, again, is weak and not manly. So how do I really show up with intimacy and vulnerability, with a sense of connection and empathy? Like, empathizing with my daughter has been one of the hardest things for me because immediately I want to make her wrong as a 2-year-old for feeling sad because because I had that exact same experience, and I either had to work through the wound of somebody crushing my own spirit, or I was going to crush hers. Right? We repeat what we don't repair.
Yeah.
And so that was so that's where the work comes from, and then it continues to evolve. And my daughter's 15 now, and we're growing together and we're learning, and I laugh a little because I got this book, the first book I've got, A Man's Way Through the 12 Steps. There's an international book study happening right now of my book, right? And so I attend it, and then I go every week. So I'm reading my own book that I put out in 2009. And I'm like, that's good. That's a good book. It's well written, great ideas. But what I laugh at is how, like, here I am 15 years later, and I think I'm finally being able to live the stuff I'm talking about in a book I wrote 15 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's,
that's kind of been the journey for me. And I think the journey continues. God will show me where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do. I believe that. I fight it. I don't like it sometimes. I don't know sometimes, where I'm supposed to go, what I'm supposed to do, or I'm scared, uh, and I don't do it. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I have no doubt in my mind that this is the work I'm supposed to be doing, and this is the work that found me.
yeah, I second that. And I really appreciate your transparency, your honesty. I mean, you're willing to say, I haven't figured it all out yet. I'm still learning, despite your brilliance and the great work that you're doing. Stay with us. We're going to take a short time out, and then we'll be back, folks, with Dan Griffin here on the Fathering Strong podcast.
Every father faces a crucial question. How do I become the dad my children truly need? I'm Bruce Stapleton, and my new book, Fathering Strong, God's Blueprint for Leading Your Family, offers the guidance you've been searching for. Drawing from scripture and real-life experiences, this book provides practical wisdom for fathers at every stage, from cradling a newborn to connecting with adult children. Discover how to build a legacy of faith, courage, and love through authentic fatherhood. Available now where books are sold.
Dan Griffin is my guest today. He is lead consultant, speaker, and author. And your concern is Griffin Recovery Enterprises. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Before we talk some more about the work that you're doing, I want to take a step back and ask you about having your first child. What was the dominant emotion you felt when you realized you were going to be a dad?
Ooh. So let me say a few things, and this is probably going to get emotional, but I did not want to be a father at first, because I didn't want to. I didn't want the possibility that I could do to a child what happened to me. I just didn't trust myself. And I have a wonderful wife who really wanted kids and was a real stand for us, and you know saw the best of me, even when she had to deal with the rest of me.
Mm-hmm.
um, so I was like, okay, all right, let's try it. And then we couldn't have kids. We tried and we tried, and then we had 4 miscarriages. Um, one of the miscarriages was on my wife's 40th birthday. Um, and it's the one that we thought was really going to happen. She was already into her second trimester. We had just stopped by the doctor on our way to Mexico City for her 40th birthday to see, um, just to see how things were. And he said, I don't see a heartbeat. And it was devastating.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And I mean, thank you. And I mean, it was devastating. And, I mean, our hearts just dropped, you know, and I
Of
mean,
course.
my wife's 40th birthday. And I didn't even know, um, I don't know. So we looked at maybe adoption, and it was around that time I started writing a kids music album, because now I had all this energy, right, toward being a father, and I needed to do something with it. So I just started writing this album, and we were looking at adoption, and then we were looking at IVF, and we did IVF, and that didn't take, and then the possibility of a donor egg came up, and we were like, yeah, it's too expensive. Um, and we were at my wife's in-laws' house in Minnesota, and my mom and her partner were visiting, and they sat us down, and and they told us like, we know how much this means to you. We want to help you. We want to help you pay for the donor egg, uh, which we weren't expecting. And we did it, and we got our amazing daughter, Grace. And so when you say, how did it feel? There's no feeling when the baby is born. It's the whole time. It's everything, right? I mean, the only name that made sense after everything we had been through was Grace.
That's beautiful.
Right?
Yeah.
And she's a beautiful girl. She's a pain in the ass sometimes, but she's a beautiful
Aren't they all?
Right? Aren't I? Aren't I? You know, I mean, she's just being a teenager, but in the grand scheme of things, we got the golden freaking egg, man. I mean, she is amazing. And I got a friend who's going through really tough pregnancy stuff, and I'm like, I know it's tough now, and I don't know where it's going to lead for you, but I will tell you this. It was really painful for us, but we don't think about that anymore. We don't look at Grace and think donor egg, and we don't look at Grace and think of all the pain and the miscarriages and all we think about is the love we have for her. All we think about is this amazing child who has blessed our lives in ways that we could never have imagined. So when it came time for her to be born, of course, Grace wanted to add a little extra drama, so she got the cord wrapped around her neck and was suffocating. So they had to do an emergency C-section, and that was scary.
Oh my. Yeah.
After everything we've been through, to have that. But I can still see her being born. I can still see myself holding her. And the feelings, there's no feeling. If you are at all in touch with what you're experiencing, there's no one feeling that's happening, I think, because it is unbelievable. I mean, you're watching this little tiny human come out, your partner, and then it's like, holy shit. I mean, sorry. It was like, oh my gosh, it's just like, wow. And one of the things that has stuck with Grace this whole time, and it says something about the spark, right? We always talk about how every child is born with a spark that God gives us, right? The nurse said, oh my God, she is so aware. I have never seen a baby that is 30 minutes old this aware. She's already taking it all in. And that's Grace. Like, that is who she is. And in fact, that comment about awareness or alert followed her for the next year. People would look at her, meet her, and would say, wow, she is really alert. Wow, she's very aware. And we were like, whoa, okay, that's so, and the feelings don't stop. I mean, I love my dog. They say, as you know, they say that when you truly open your heart to a child, you experience a love unlike any other love.
Yeah.
And I have to say that is true for me.
Yeah. So what has been the biggest challenge of raising Grace?
Me. No, I mean, in all seriousness, it has absolutely been
explain
me.
this.
She has been an incredible teacher for me. I I like to say I'm this emotional, sensitive, vulnerable guy, but a lot of the time I'm not. And it pains me sometimes that I still hide so much behind this masculine bull stuff. I mean, like just this facade, the character, the persona, the mask, and and I think she's helped me let go more and more of that because I've been willing to let her be my teacher. Like I knew going into this, like that I would learn as much from her as I would ever teach her. And I think the gift, right, is that there's a mutuality. There's an incredible amount of respect that we have for each other. But I mean, when you come from a background of abuse like I do, it doesn't go away because you love somebody. In fact, some people might say it for some perverse, horrible reason. The more you love, the more the possibility of hurting somebody. And I think it's because in that love is the deepest vulnerability. And that deepest vulnerability opens us up to our deepest wounds.
Yeah.
And if we're not paying attention, if we're really not paying attention, they take over. And have I had times in my relationship with Grace where they took over? You absolutely believe it. I have. I am a truly, as our curriculum says, I know I'm an amazing dad, but I'm a very imperfect dad as well.
Aren't we all?
Right. I mean, it's we're all imperfect, but can you embrace the imperfection and can you embrace it without shame? I mean, like there's the little things that I would learn. When I learned, Eli, the value of recognizing that I'm a 6 foot tall, loud man, and this is a little child at the time. I need to get on. I need to sit down. I need to kneel. I need to be at her height.
Yeah. Yep.
I need to be mindful. I'm scary by virtue of just showing up.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how calm I am. So what does it mean to meet our kids where they're at and to learn how to do that and to learn? I mean, I'm guessing you came from a similar generation, but like I apologize to my daughter all the time. I clean up my stuff. I'm accountable, right? And in the old paradigm of generations past, the idea that you would do that would be like, why would I apologize to my child? I'm the parent.
Yeah.
I'm not the one who needs to apologize. If I make a mistake, so be it. But they need to just deal with it, whatever. I don't even know how parents thought. I think there was a lot of shame. There was a lot of self-centeredness. There was a lot of trauma, and there was a lot of, arrogance. But whatever it is, and the arrogance just belied all the insecurity. But like for me, it's been like, hey, you know what? That really wasn't okay. I apologize.
Yep.
What do you need from me? Anything you need to say to me about how that felt? And she's told me. And as a result, at 15 years old, she still comes and checks in with me. We still hug. We say goodnight and I love you all the time. We say I love you just throughout the day. And we have a connection. Here's what I want to say as we're wrapping up. I want to dispel a real myth out there. Okay?
Let's hear it.
When Grace was born, okay, I created the intention that I would be present for her life, that I would never, as best I could, say, what happened? Where'd the time go? How is it possible? What happened to her child? I want to be able to say, because she's 15, and you know what? It feels like 15 years. Doesn't feel like less than, doesn't feel like a lot more. I feel like I've been connected with her. But here's the myth. The myth is that at a certain point, as they're approaching teenage years and adolescence, they're going to hate you. They're going to turn away from you. They're going to not want to have anything to do with you. All this narrative we have in our society that says how parents are supposed to get along with adolescents. I don't believe it. It's not happening in my life right now. And so I don't believe it even more. I think it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in a lot of people's lives. And I think what happens is, yes, of course, she needs to find herself. Yes, of course, she needs to find her identity. And I support her in that. And I hold her close. And she allows me because she trusts me. And we love each other and we laugh. And we knock on wood, and I think if it changes, it'll be because I screwed up. But as of now, we are as close as we have ever been. And she is 15 years old. And I'm a father and she's a daughter.
Yeah. Good stuff, Dan. Good stuff. We're going to take our final time out. And when we come back, I don't want to close out without you having an opportunity to talk about what you do there at Griffin Recovery Enterprises and to talk about your books a little bit and tell people how they can get in touch with you if they want to know more. My guest today is Dan Griffin. He is a lead consultant. He's a speaker. He is an author and a really good dad. We'll be back after this.
Children benefit significantly from the presence of committed, loving, nurturing fathers. Strong fathers contribute to stable families and safe, healthy communities. Fathering Strong connects, engages, and empowers fathers. Join the fatherhood movement at fatheringstrong.com to discover a wealth of resources. From inspiring videos to informative articles and instructive courses. By subscribing to our resources, you're not just helping yourself. You're helping Fathering Strong provide these valuable tools to families in need. Visit fatheringstrong.com, download the app, and subscribe to our YouTube channel today. Together, let's build stronger families and communities.
This is the Fathering Strong podcast. I'm Eli Williams, and my guest today is Dan Griffin. Dan has been sharing a fascinating account of his growing up, the trauma that he experienced, and the difficulty of growing up the way he did. And then we turned the corner and talked about the wonderful experience he has had himself as a dad. Just a whole lot to learn and be inspired by. Dan, I'm happy that you were able to join us today. Before we go, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about your work and how folks can get a hold of you if they want to know more, or maybe they want to take advantage of the services that you offer to men.
Well, thank you, Eli. I feel like I've really been dominating too much of this podcast. I haven't heard a whole lot.
You're a great. I love being able to ask one question and get at least 20 minutes as an answer. You're
Okay,
perfect.
Well, all right. Well, I'd love to just catch up more, and hear more of your story. And I will say that I'm very happy to say that I just redid my website. So it's a brand new website, dangriffin.com, and it is. I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of the rebranding that we're doing, and just kind of the newer approach. How I'm doing the website. So the work that I do, it's all on the website. I do trainings, I do consulting. We consult with programs around their men's services, father's services. We train on our curriculum that we wrote. I mean, there's pretty much nothing that we don't do if it's related to your services or to working with men. We're going to be doing some online stuff for fathers very shortly, and that's going to be very cool. It's going to be the first time that we've done this, but it's going to be a specific group just for dads based on our curriculum, and for dads to just really kind of dig into the kind of father that they want to be and get the support for that. So we're excited about that. That should be coming in the next 6 to 12 months. Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of public speaking, and working on some other writing projects. I'm working on a book to go with our curriculum, Amazing Dads. And the book is surprisingly called Amazing Dads. and it's good. It's really good. I'm really pleased with it. And we'll, it's not done, but we'll see where it goes. But for anybody who's been listening, and anything that resonates, I try to be a pretty reachable, dude. And so you can just reach out directly to me, Dan@dangriffin.com. Tell me, especially that you heard me on the Fathering Strong podcast, and then just let me know if there's any way that I can be helpful, or maybe you just want to send an email to just say, hey, this is my experience, and thank you for sharing your experience, or whatever. It's all good.
And listen to this, folks. He even put his phone number on his webpage. I'm looking at it right there.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It is true.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So our commitment is to reach back to people within 24 hours. So if you don't hear from us within 24 hours, you get a free book. So.
All right. I'm going to test you on that.
Yeah, test me. Let's see.
No, I'm only kidding. Love to have you back again sometime, Dan, and dig a little deeper into some of these very important issues that you raised.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for creating a space for this conversation. I mean, this is heavy. You got right into it, just like my friend this morning, man. We just like bam.
Your friend was prepping you for
prepping me. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I thought that conversation was intense. Now I got this one. Holy cannolis.
Thank you so much. We will be in touch, and we will definitely. I want to follow up with you on your vision for the online thing that you want to do, because there may be some things we can learn from each other.
I'd love it. I am so glad you reached out. It's so great to see you again, and I'll look forward to being able to share this when it comes out.
Dan Griffin, folks. Thank you, Dan, and thank you all for being a part of today's Fathering Strong podcast. We appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe, because by subscribing, we will notify you every time a new podcast is put out there. You don't have to wonder. We'll send it right to your email box. And the more subscriptions we have, then the more support we can get to help provide free services for dads. So there are plenty of reasons to subscribe to our YouTube channel, fatheringstrong.com. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you next time on the Fathering Strong podcast.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Fathering Strong podcast. We hope you found the conversation inspiring and helpful. To make sure you don't miss out on future episodes, subscribe to the Fathering Strong podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Just search for Fathering Strong in your favorite app. The Fathering Strong podcast is brought to you by Urban Light Ministries, a nonprofit organization with a 3-decade legacy dedicated to turning the hearts of fathers to their children. Thanks to your support, we're able to keep this podcast and many other resources free for dads everywhere. To learn more about Urban Light Ministries or to donate and help us continue this important work, visit urbanlight.org. The Fathering Strong podcast is a production of Urban Light Ministries. Eli Williams is your host, and Bruce Stapleton of the Movementum Group is the producer and engineer. Our theme music is provided by saxophonist Harold Rayford.